coming here this evening to listen to a young Turk speak. I have very little experience in public speaking and almost none in speaking about myself, and I'm very nervous to have to do so. I'd like to begin by thanking the Rotary Club of Madras South for giving me this opportunity, and especially Mr. Madhu for giving me this opportunity to speak about myself and about the various choices I've made with regard to career in my life. I realize I am now part of a long list of very, very distinguished personalities who have had the honor of addressing you, including some very distinguished musicians and other great people from across a range of fields like healthcare, entrepreneurship, and so on. And I truly hope I will be able to do justice to this opportunity. Thank you once again. Mr. Madhu suggested I speak about journalism, teaching, and music, and me. At first I found that this would mean a rather disconnected talk, because I wasn't quite sure how I could move seamlessly from one sphere or one realm of my life to the other. But as I thought about it, I realized all these fields of my life, whether my training as a journalism student, my occasional foray into journalism in the form of feature writing, or my position as an amateur singer, do in fact have something in common. And that is something that I'd like to share with you as I go along. Before I begin formally, I'd like to start by paying tribute to the first commonality, I believe, that all three realms of my life have, and that is the goddess Saraswati. Without her, the goddess of learning, there could indeed be no good knowledge acquisition, and I would be no teacher and no musician without her blessings. I would therefore like to begin by singing a small composition in praise of the goddess Saraswati. Vidyadayini Sharade Vidyadayini Sharade Nad Brahmaswar Jnanadayini Nad Brahmaswar Jnanadayini Madhurim Veena Vadini Madhurim Veena Vadini Punya Pavani Varde Varde Vidyadayini Sharade Nad Brahmaswar Jnanadayini Nad Brahmaswar Jnanadayini Madhurim Veena Vadini Madhurim Veena Vadini Punya Pavani Varde Varde Vidyadayini Sharade Paramananda Vatsale Paramananda स्वर ज्ञानदायिनी नाद ब्रह्म स्वर ज्ञानदायिनी मधुरिम वीणा वादिनी मधुरिम वीणा वादिनी पुण्य पावनी वरदे वरदे विद्यादायिनी शारदे विद्यादायिनी शारदे. Having grown up in a family of musicians, poets, writers, journalists, I think it was only natural that I decided quite early on in my life that I wanted to do something that involved creative expression, and that was a creative pursuit in itself. Both my grandfathers, in fact, have been keen journalists. My great uncle is a Sahitya Academy award-winning musicologist, writer, musician, singer. My parents are very gifted at language and at many other creative fields. And all dinner table conversation, I think, was really always on topics that exposed me and my brother very early on to the arts and to all forms of creative expression, about music, theatre, film, writing, and so on. And I think, therefore, it's only natural that both my older brother and I took a very keen interest in reading and writing very early on in life. And I recently unearthed one of my first novellas, which I wrote when I was 5 years old. And I wish I had the confidence I had when I was 5, because I think somewhere along the way, education and life experience strips you of any innate confidence that you might have in your abilities. But very early on, we had enjoyed doing things creative, doing things artistic. And I think it came as no surprise when, after my bachelor's degree in sociology, I told my parents that I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do, except that I knew that it had to do with writing. Now, I belong to one of those curious categories of individuals who has actually never known what exactly he or she wants to do in life. When I was young and when people asked me what I wanted to be, every day the answer would change. Sometimes I wanted to be a writer, sometimes I remember wanting to say I wanted to be a photojournalist, and I don't quite remember how I knew what a photojournalist did. I wouldn't want to be a photojournalist today. I remember wanting to be a pilot and many, many other things. And even as recently as 10 years ago, when I joined college, I remember crying to my father saying, everyone seems to know so early on in life what exactly they want to do, and I simply have no idea. And he asked me why, and I said it's because I find so many things interesting, and I believe that there are so many areas in which I could do well if only I tried, but I'm not able to decide which one to focus my maximum energy on. At that time, I made a decision to train in a journalism, or rather to study in a journalism college. I joined the Asian College of Journalism, not knowing what I wanted to do with the degree, or not knowing what I wanted to do with the expertise or the technical know-how that I was going to get there, but deciding that it was something I knew I would enjoy learning. And at the ACJ, I did come out with not just a diploma in journalism, but I think the learning I received at this journalism college was unlike any other learning I received before, because it opened my mind to the possibilities. Dangerously many more avenues that I could indeed dabble my fingers in. at the ACJ we're taught constantly to not to widen our horizons, to know more about everything under the sun, to know in a specialized and deep way about anything that you're interested in, whether it's film or it's the arts or it's child rights, which I eventually ended up designing and teaching, or about business or about sport. And we were fortunate to have some of the most some of the great illuminaries in the media practicing field actually teaching us. And after the ACJ, when I worked at the Indian Express for a very, very, very short stint, so short in fact that if you blinked you'd miss it, I realized that writing every day about different things in a superficial manner, writing about events, writing sporadically about something that happened in the city, what they call spot reporting, wasn't really my thing. Because I thought what I really wanted to do was to be able to write. If I did write, I wanted to be able to write about something with context, with perspective, with depth, and with sensitivity. And at that I thought I wasn't able to do in a daily news writing job. It was at this time that I was offered a position as research assistant at the Asian College of Journalism, something I grabbed with both hands, because I thought here was an opportunity for me to do just what I wanted, which is to specialize in an area, in one particular area, and be able to write about it with depth and perspective. The area I was given, or I was asked to specialize in, was that of child rights. In the coming years, I designed with the help of, or in association with the UNICEF Office of Tamil Nadu at Kerala, a course for aspiring journalists about child rights in India. Through this course, I believe that this was a very defining moment for me, this chance to teach this particular subject, because I realized only then how keen I was on, or rather how much I enjoyed academic rigor, which is when, because a teacher of a subject really has to prepare for hours in order to be able to deliver a 1-hour lecture. That is something I realized then. And this kind of in-depth understanding and in-depth, nuanced understanding of a particular issue that teaching gave me, I don't think anything else has ever forced me to do. Which is why I was very pleased with this opportunity. And through this, I taught students how to situate children's issues in their social, economic, political context. Now the thing about the Indian media is it's done a wonderful job. I mean, it's been fairly independent, it has been pluralistic, it's done a good job of representing diverse views in the country, it's done a very good job of exposing large scale and not large scale, but exposing famine and drought and calamities. But what the media, one of the largest failings of the Indian media truly is that it does not talk about massive, everyday, large-scale events. And when I say that, I mean everyday poverty, everyday deprivation, everyday rural lives marked by grinding poverty, uncertainty, hunger, and people living on less than 20 rupees a day. What the media in India has specialized in doing is in being able to cover incidents and events with great precision and accuracy, and of course a great deal of sensationalism, but it has failed to understand how to uncover the larger, more ubiquitous issues around us, which have ironically become invisible to the eye of the consumer of the media. And this is something that, as a teacher of child rights, I believed the students had to know immediately, and that was everyday issues. Where we read, if you look at an Indian newspaper or an Indian television news channel, you'll find that less than 20% of its coverage deals with children. And that is truly unfortunate because children constitute 44% of our population in India. We also know that children have already been established as a particularly vulnerable group. They're particularly susceptible to changes in the social order, particularly susceptible to injustice and to deprivation, to large-scale deprivation. Why is it? What happens then to an already vulnerable minority group which has not been given its due in the Indian media? You find then that it becomes all the more important that journalists, that the press, that various media take on the responsibility of covering issues faced by children, and not only events, not only tokenistic representation of children as we see in newspapers and TV channels today, but to actually understand the issues they face. Invisible, often hidden, everyday issues of abuse, labor, malnutrition. 42% of our children are stunted, 40-something percent are underweight, and this is in fact a larger proportion than the only country or the only region in which you can find a larger proportion of underweight children is in sub-Saharan Africa. And these are huge and pressing issues of great gravity and import, and I think that it becomes the media's job to reflect, if truly the media is a mirror to reflect the happenings of society, the media then has a responsibility of talking about what is happening to its future citizens. Now the problem with children is we often label them future citizens and pre-individuals and people in the making, but what the media has forgotten is that children are also individuals. They're not outside the polity, they're not pre-individuals, they're not in some nascent form of being, but they are individuals themselves who cannot anymore be treated as passive recipients of welfare services, but who are active agents with autonomy, with capability, and with a voice. And it becomes the media's responsibility to start talking about, therefore, this particular social conceptual category of children on a daily basis, in which it has been failing because there is a huge imbalance in terms of reportage. If children truly do constitute 44% of our population, then at least 40% of newspaper coverage should be about their issues, especially considering the gravity of issues that they are plagued with. Similarly, how do we, and this is where I'd like to bring my training in a good journalism school into focus, and that is to be able to situate an issue, not to be able to engage in what is called event journalism, which is what today's journalists do, but to engage in what is called process journalism, which is to understand an issue in its entirety and to be able to write about it in a nuanced, sensitive manner, to be able to provide context, to be able to provide analysis, to be able to provide background and perspective. That requires a deeper understanding, perhaps a more specialized understanding of any issue. Just to give you an example, malnutrition in our country is not only because of unavailability of food, it could be because of lack of accessibility of food, it could be because of poor infant feeding techniques, it could be because of low status of mothers or uneducated mothers who do not know how to feed their infants. Child labor is not merely caused by poverty, it could be caused by a non-responsive and irresponsible education system which forces children into factories. It could be caused by migration, it could be caused by lack of credit options. So as you can see, unless journalism really is able, I use the example of child rights because that is my area of specialization, but perhaps one of the failings of journalism today is its inability to engage in process journalism because of many reasons, because of concentrated media ownership, because of commercial interests, because of huge competition, because of the need to attract advertisers who contribute to something like 80% of a newspaper's revenue and so on. So there are many reasons for this, but the fact is that the Indian media, despite its many positives, has indeed been unable to talk about certain issues with depth. And I use child rights as an example to prove. And this is how I believe my area of journalism And my interest or my training in journalism and my interest in child rights have actually come together. It has been a happy marriage because I'd like to believe that this course caters to aspiring journalists and teaches them to be able to talk about a very important issue with sensitivity and with context, which is not possible if they were to if they were not aware of the need to make these links between all the various social, cultural, political, economic factors in our country. So this really has been my tryst with journalism and child rights. All along I have also been very interested in and keen on singing. As a child I've gone to many schools, I've shifted many cities, lived in many different areas, which always meant that music classes were interrupted, they were sporadic, they were irregular. But through all that, I think I really always loved to sing. I never actually considered that it could possibly be a profession until very recently. But I have been also lucky to be able to reach a sort of, to have a sort of marriage of another two of my interests, which are journalism and music, because I have been able to write about music, and various arts, about photography, about art, and so on, in various leading magazines and news websites. And I think that is a very happy marriage of interests again. And I'm lucky that the various realms of my life do collide in this manner, even if only occasionally. However, I think music has remained a passion, and it has remained something which has only become more and more important for me as time has gone by. If you recall my telling you about how I was never able to make a choice, that indecision remains even today. I am still unable to tell you what I'd like to do or what I will be doing in 10 years. And I recently came across a TED talk by a writer and an artist, an American writer and artist, and she talked about the existence of multi-potentialites. This is like the Renaissance man, like Leonardo da Vinci, who was capable of and interested in many things at once. And of course, I'm not saying I'm a Renaissance man, and I'm no Leonardo da Vinci, but it's interesting to know that I'm not an aberration, or rather that it's not wrong. That society has conditioned us into believing that there is that finding a narrow focus is very important, but it's not necessarily true. That it is perhaps all right to be able to have multiple interests and indulge in them all at once. And of course, this is all because of that romantic idea of if you have a purpose on earth, you have to serve that particular purpose, that narrow focus, and so on. And I'd like to believe that one could have more than one purpose on earth. But of course, this was a very reassuring concept for me to read about, which means that I'm not an anomaly, like I said, and it is possible to have many different interests at once. But of course, it's also, I think, a luxury that only our generation really has, the luxury of choosing, the luxury of indecision, because we come from a position of privilege. We are born in a time in which the options are limitless, and we have time on our hands. We are no longer as constrained by those social landmarks, time-bound landmarks as previous generations were, for many reasons. And I think it's wonderful that I've been able to indulge in this exploration really of my interests, and a lot of others too have been. But I must admit, and I must confess, that I'm sure that it would not have been possible if I wasn't born to my parents, or if I wasn't born into the socio-economic stratum of society that I belong to today. But it is, like I said, it is indeed a luxury that I have had the freedom to explore, something I'm very happy about. And it was sometime in 2007, I was introduced to what has today become my favorite genre of music, Bhava Sangeetam. One of the doyens really of this particular genre of Bhava Sangeetam, which I'll tell you about. In 2008, who happened to be a family friend, requested me to sing her songs at her 80th birthday celebration. Now, this was an introduction to Bhava Sangeetam that was, I think this was a turning point in my life, because this became a means to an end. Learning Bhava Sangeetam, learning Telugu Bhava Sangeetam became a means for me to learn poetry and to learn Telugu, both of which I'm immensely fortunate and immensely grateful for. And in this, so Bhava Sangeetam, let me tell you a little bit about that, is actually, for this I have to tell you about one of the modern literary, Telugu literary epochs, which existed between the late 19th century and the early 20th century, which is called Bhava Kavitvam. Now, this in fact this was a movement that came about, that was spawned, that in a very, very fertile, not only in terms of its soil, but in terms of the kind of minds that lived there, very fertile, very verdant, very beautiful landscape of the Godavari belt. In Kakinada and in Pithapuram, against the backdrop of the very, very liberal, progressive, reformist Brahmo Samaj movements, there were intellectuals who wrote poetry which was non-denominational, which embodied love, in which the plot and the story of the poem became less important than the feeling that it embodied, and the bhava and the sentiment that it carried. Now, this kind of romanticism is in fact very, very similar to the romanticism you see among the English poets. Keats, Shelley, Wordsworth, and so on. I said Kelly, I'm sorry. You find that if you look at what Wordsworth described his idea of romantic poetry as, he clearly talks about romantic poetry as almost being something that was in opposition to the Enlightenment, to the Renaissance period, where he says there is an emphasis of intuition over reason, and there is an emphasis of nature, of the pastoral over the urban. And he talks about how there was a very clear and very deliberate attempt to move away from traditional poetic language and speak in more colloquial terms. And this is almost exactly what happened in the Telugu literary epoch of Bhava Kavitvam as well. From the heavily Sanskritized, plot-oriented text, there was a movement to more colloquial, more understandable, more relatable Telugu. You found that nature worship, the worship of nature, became very important, and is in fact a recurring theme in many works of this genre. And of course, you also find that, like I said, the pastoral over the urban is also very quite relevant here as well, because if you listen to some of the poetry, many of the poems are in fact in great praise of the lush, verdant landscape of Godavari, of the swaying trees, and of the river that has a gait like a royal swan, and so on. So as you can see, there's a personification of nature, much like the English Romantic poets did. So Bhava Sangeetam is actually setting this to Bhava Kavitvam to tune. Now, this happened both by setting existing poetry to tune, and also with musicians, and with the musician and the lyricist sitting together and together chiseling out a song with lyric and music coming together, working in tandem coming together. And here, in fact, I am proud to come from a very rich legacy. My great uncle, Balantrapu Rajinikantarao, is in fact one of the people who is one of the biggest contributors to this genre of Bhava Sangeetam. Similarly, Srimati Anasuya Devi.
How about
This is when it comes in, yes. Srimati Anasuya Devi is in fact also very supposed to be the queen of Bhava Sangeetam and of folk music. She archived, documented folk music right from the 1930s, and she continues to talk about and sing today at the age of 96 with her astonishingly resonant voice. And these are people with this interest in Bhava Sangeetam for me was fueled by these encounters with these wonderful people who also happen to be family and who taught me, and one of the more recent exponents of Bhava Sangeetam is in fact Malladi Singh Babu, who is the father of the renowned Malladi brothers. So I'd like to sing a particular song for you now to show you what I mean. Some famous people apart from Rajnikanta Rao and Anasuya Devi, Devulapalli Krishna Shastri actually wrote some of the most amazingly touching, moving poetry, and he's considered, of course, one of the greats in Telugu literary history. In this particular song, the poet is in a very curious and a very luxurious dilemma. He says, should I become the bird on the tree and start cooing? Or should I become the fragrance in the flower? Or should I become the beauty that is in the half-opened bud? Or should I become the star that swings gently from the fluffy, tender cloud in the skies? So you can see how there is a romanticization of nature. Kommalo koyilanai kosari puyana remmalalo punai taviniyana kommalo koyilanai kosari puyana remmalalo punai taviniyana aravirisina sumadallamuna soyagamai dagana aravirisina sumadallamuna soyagamai dagana taarakanai telimabbula uyalanai ugana taarakanai telimabbula uyalanai ugana kommalo koyilanai kosari kuyana remmalalo punai taviniyana jala 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 ravalinche selayeruga marana alanai ne galagala kadali natyamana kommalo koyilanai alayana je gantala nadamai dhvaninchana how different Bhava Sangeetam can be. This was about the worship of nature. Similarly, the Madhura Bhakti tradition was also very much alive in the Bhava Sangeetam tradition. In this particular composition, the lover, or perhaps it is Radha, she asks Krishna, she yearns to unite with Krishna. The soul yearns to be one with the Jivatma yearns to be one with the Paramatma, you could interpret it as. And she says, why is there so much pain in the sweet song of your flute? Why is there so much torture in this exquisite bliss? And this particular composition is very interesting because this was written by my great uncle, Valanthrapu Rajinikanth Rao, and he had set it to tune, but when Malladi Suri Babu had to sing it at the All India Radio, he in fact sung it differently. He composed it in a different tune because he was very influenced by ghazal singers and by Mehdi Hassan in particular, and he wished to sing it in this style. And my great uncle was so thrilled with it that he actually said that this should be the tune of the song, and he discarded his tune completely. Hailo nela yadakinta hilsa Hailo nela yadakinta hilsa Hailo nela yadakinta hilsa Tiya patalo badhela vamsi Hailo nela yadakinta hilsa Tiya patalo badhela vamsi Hailo nela yadakinta hilsa Yadakinta hilsa Sakala ninnu virichi Sakala ninnu virichi Sakala ninnu virichi Vikala rutulande jagati mai marachu Sakala ninnu virichi Vikala rutulande jagati mai marachu Hailo nela yadakinta hilsa Tiya patalo badhela vamsi Hailo nela yadakinta hilsa Yadakinta hilsa Murali ni paata yelaga kadamu Murali ni paata yelaga kadamu Murali ni paata yelaga kadamu Rajani Rajani Kanthana Rajani Kanthana Rajani Kanthana Rajani Kanthana Yelabu Podamu Muralini Pata Yelagat Kadamu Rajani Kanthana 2007, like I told you, when Dr. Anasuya Devi very indulgently called me the heir to her Bhava Sangeetam fortune, I was mortified because I didn't know Telugu. I didn't think I could sing very well, and I certainly didn't think this was a legacy I had the wherewithal to be heir to. Today I am very privileged. I feel privileged and very honoured that I am indeed the heir to the Bhava Sangeetam legacy, as she declared me to be, because I think this is a genre with the ability to move even someone who hears no music and sees no art, because it links directly to the heart, which every individual has, whether or not he has a ear for music. I'd like to end with a Tamil composition, just for a change. This composition is by Kalki Krishnamurthy, contemporary Tamil composer, and I sing this particular song because I like it very much, because it moves me the same way Bhava Sangeetam moves me, because it touches the heart, and it embodies emotion, it embodies bhava, it embodies surrender, in which the Nayika sees a flash of Muruga and suddenly she sees beauty in mundane things. Suddenly she sees color in the sky and in the sea, and she's a transformed woman by her love. And I believe that this kind of this devotion that this song embodies is in fact very close to the kind that Bhava Sangeetam embodies, which is why it is in fact a favorite of mine. And I also thought, as a language, Tamil may resonate with the audience more. I just have a minute. பூங்குயில் கூவும் பூஞ்சோலையில் ஒரு நாள் got all the realms of my life. I thought it would be injustice not to also speak about my half Tamil lineage, which is why a Tamil composition. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Just one question. So we are short of time. Is there anyone who wants to ask one question? Thank you very much. On behalf of the Rotary Club of Madras, yes. I request Saravanan to propose a vote of thanks.
Good evening. Members would agree that the maiden speech about her was as good as her voice, her knowledge in music and journalism. On behalf of the members of the Rotary Club of Madras, we wish you all the best and thanks for sharing your time with us today. Thank you.